Welcome to Center for Victory's podcast of Your Best Day Yet, episode number 9. I am Eric Guy, Chief Victory Officer at Center for Victory. At Center for Victory, we're here to help unlock, reinforce, and enrich relationships through personal and professional development. What we're doing, we're picking up where we left off last time with, like I said, principle number 9 on how to supercharge your life and your future. I'm here with Zack DelTurco, Executive Consultant at Center for Victory. Welcome, Zack. Thanks for coming back again.
Glad to be here.
All right. But as we get into this next principle, last time you and I talked about truth. And the episode before that, I actually had my son on. We talked about the concept of being like Fred. And really, these are just principles that we've seen that help people really take that next step in life, get rid of that kind of that head trash, and especially with today's one, which is it's kind of, I would say it's almost two principles in one, but really it's forgiving, not judging, and forgiving. So when we look at that, why do we need to forgive and not judge? You know, what are those two things doing us? So let's break it up. Let's start with judging first. Mm-hmm. So when we look at the principle for success, why shouldn't I judge? I mean, it sounds like a crazy question, but
yeah, I mean, I think it all boils down to this idea of when you judge, it's almost like you have an expectation of the way somebody should be talking to you, the way somebody should be treating you. And I heard it said multiple times by some of the other podcasts that I listen to. It's like he says, Gary Vee always says, I have no expectations of anybody. Just therefore, if I do have expectations and they don't meet that expectation, then they let me down. Yeah. When I don't have expectations, or if I don't care about what people think about me, or I don't judge, it's like, man, you can't, it's almost like it's a preventative from having an offense or being bitter about a situation.
And I find that subconsciously when we judge, what we're doing is internally we're taking all that in ourselves. So we're not only are we judging another person, the reason you want to let that go and just not have those expectations is because that frees yourself from doing that unconsciously to yourself. So now you don't have all that head trash of, oh, this person's this or that. Because what you do as soon as you start thinking that or say that or verbalize that, again, verbalization could just be gossip, right? Then you're looking at, you're bringing all that on yourself.
Yeah.
So then you're worried about, oh, the people, is that what they're thinking about me? So, do they say stuff about me like that? You can release yourself from that judgment as well.
Wow.
Right?
I really like that. Yeah. I never thought about when you judge somebody. Yeah. It's almost like you start to have those kind of thoughts as well about your internal self. And yeah, I think when you stay clear of the judgment zone, that's why I love Planet Fitness. It's a judgment-free zone. So I know when I go to Planet Fitness, people aren't looking at me, judging me. They probably are, but I like that idea of, man,
are they sponsoring us yet, by the way?
I don't know.
No. Maybe I should just give them a plug. Good. Sorry, I got you off track.
Yeah, but I think I've never looked at it that way.
Okay.
If I don't judge somebody, then I personally don't hold myself to that as well, or I don't care about, what other people might say about me or think about me, because I'm not casting that on somebody else.
Yeah. One of the things that we do here, that you and I do, and our consultants as well, when we take a look at somebody and we're helping them really understand themselves and really that deeper down dive of really the self-esteem part, really loving yourself, you reinforce that negative self-esteem or when you judge others, because then you're just constantly judging yourself. If you can free yourself from that, usually what happens is you start to feel better about yourself, because you're not portraying that on the world, so it's not coming back on you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that. Yeah, that was a takeaway for me right there. Okay. So if I get nothing out of this podcast, that's my
yeah. Well, I think it's a big deal, because a lot of times, if you sit around with people, you start gossiping, you start judging people, and it's like, oh, like unconsciously, it's like, oh, maybe they're doing that to me. You know, we don't think it consciously, but it's there. And then whatever that judgment is that we hold the same thing against us. So we look at, if we're looking at somebody else or people or whatever, that ultimately comes back on ourselves. And to free yourself of that gets rid of all that negative contagion, right, in your head. It's like, just get rid of it. And that's when I see successful people, one of the reasons that I initially put this in this outline, and we talk a lot about this with young adults too, kids in high school, you know, really just getting rid of that. Like, just be yourself, right? Because whatever you judge, that comes back on you, right? I've got a good quote here. It says, every time you judge someone, you reveal a part of yourself that needs healing.
That's good. And to that point, I was just thinking about the word judge. And what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of judge?
Me?
Yeah.
Judge Judy.
Judge Judy.
Do you know who Judge Judy is?
I know who Judge Judy is. But when you think about judge, you think about a court system. And when you think about a court system, you think about guilty, not guilty.
Right.
And then you also think about, okay, does that mean prison? Does that mean house arrest? Like, so it's almost like when you're judging, you're setting yourself up to live in prison. Yeah. If you really want to boil it down to that. Right. When you're judging somebody, what you're doing is you're building a house or a prison one block at a time based on your judgment. Yeah. Which, what do you think people start judging? What do you think that judgment leads to?
Just a negative outlook of oneself. I mean, that's when I see people, when I'm working with people at a different or at a deeper level, they're really holding that on their own. And that's that part, you know, with that quote, every time you judge someone, you reveal a part of yourself that needs healing. It's like, okay, well, if I'm looking at everybody else like that, there's a good indication that I'm probably looking at myself like that. Yeah. So if I say that person is evil or doesn't belong here or whatever, is just a goof, then what happens is you internalize that. And when you let go of it, it just frees you. So it frees you from worry, anxiety. And again, we're looking to provide people with principles here to really supercharge their life and their future. When you let go of that judgment, you let go of it not just for that person, but for yourself. And then that paradigm, that those thoughts aren't with you anymore. That's good. And so that frees you out from all that worry, that anxiety, the constant, like, in your head over and over again. And what's funny about that is most people aren't that way. I don't think we naturally want to be that way. We're just taught to be that way, and we get into start gossiping and things. When you free your mind from all that garbage and you free your mind from all that gossip, it's amazing what that can do in your life. It frees up so much hard drive space. Like, if you think of it as a computer, there's just so much more that you can do with that space other than worrying about, you know, who's judging you. Yeah.
So with that thought of, you know, we're talking about judge and then forgive. Right. How do you see those? How do you see those two tying together?
Well, I think there's a lot of judgment or forgiveness not given because there's judgment on it. Like, you know, when I say forgive somebody, I know that that's tough. You know, we've all been hurt. And what most people don't understand, and I learned this years and years ago, and it was a revelation and a big aha for me. Forgiveness is not for that person. Forgiveness is for me.
That's good.
When I forgive that person, you don't have to, you know, if that person has somehow hurt you or whatever, you don't have to continue to engage with that person. I'm not saying, hey, like, let's be friends again, right? And that's just not realistic. However, when you forgive that person, what you're doing is you're getting rid of all that bitterness, right? And that maybe anger, rage, whatever that's going on inside of you, and you're just releasing it. So again, now freeing up more hard drive space when you forgive.
Yeah. Well, I which is interesting because I've heard this so many times. You just need to forgive and forget. Yeah. And I'm like, that doesn't seem right. It's like, okay, I'm gonna walk across the crosswalk. I'm gonna get hit by a car, and I'm gonna get up forget about it and keep moving on.
Uh-huh.
And that same intersection, it's like, oh, just forget about it. No, like, what they did to you is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And forgiveness isn't saying, you know what they did to me is wrong or what they did to me is right. It's saying, okay, they did me wrong, but I'm choosing to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so hard. And I think there's this idea of forgiveness and reconciliation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, forgiveness is a one-party event.
Yeah.
Reconciliation is two or more. So if me and you have something going on where, man, we need to talk things out,
Mm-hmm.
like I could choose to forgive you right now, but if we want to have that reconciliation, both parties have to come to an agreement.
Yeah.
And I think that's the interesting thing between forgiveness and reconciliation. And I always like this concept or this idea of forgiveness and bitterness. So like when you don't forgive, you choose to be bitter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's said like this: bitterness is like drinking poison, thinking the other person's going to die from it.
Yeah.
When you think about it, it's just like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right?
And we do it all the time. And that's when I see, again, why this is part of this lineup here of these principles that we're sharing, is I see the most successful people, whatever walk in life, wherever they're at, whether they're, you know, the leader of a company or just trying to be the best possible parent they can be,
Mm-hmm.
they're able to forgive.
Mm.
They're able to get rid of that judgment, right? Because if you get rid of that judgment, think about what that means. Like, as you're at home with your kids, you don't judge your kids,
Yep.
right? And a lot of us just hold on to that because of past conditioning. It's like, well, that's what was given to us. So when you rid that, you rid your mind and then you forgive. Again, to your point, it's not about forgive and forget. It's about forgive and then let's move on.
Yeah.
So you either move on without that person or form that reconciliation. But it's just really amazing how much contentment you can have in life when you learn these two principles and put them into play. I think these are probably two, this is probably one of the more difficult ones, that, at least for me and I find with people, is to be able to do that, because you're talking about hurt, you're talking about emotional hurt, you're talking about some pain. But we also should say forgive, get up, and learn from,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It's not about forget.
Yeah.
And what did I learn from this?
And I think you while you were saying it, brought up this idea of forgiveness really comes from people who you trust the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because someone could say something to me at the airport and I don't think twice about it. Like,
right.
They could call me like, hey.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, 2 minutes later, I'm going to move on. But if you would say the same thing to me,
right.
You see what I'm saying? Because I think trust has to be built in order for there to be any type of divide.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably with your closest friends or your family that you have the hardest time
Absolutely.
to forgive. And, kind of to sum up my part of this podcast, I just want to share a quick story that I think can apply to a lot of people. Recently I was hurt by somebody, and this person was a leader in my life, and I was having a hard time forgiving because what I really wanted was reconciliation. So I went past forgiveness to go to get reconciliation, where step one is to first forgive, then to try to reconcile.
Right.
So I was holding on to this bitterness because I wanted to reconcile first, then forgive. So I think for a lot of us, it's, hey, forgiveness is step one, reconciliation is step two.
Mm-hmm.
So forgive and let it go on your end, and then try to reconcile with that person that maybe have offended you or said something that really hurt you in a deep way.
Mm-hmm. Good. Any other tips as we wrap this up? Any other tips that you had? I know you said you had an aha, but I think we'll sum that up as just saying, forgiveness, judging and forgiveness. When we get rid of judgment and we learn how to forgive, it's not for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it's for us. It's really an internal job that we have to learn, so we don't have those bad thoughts, that negative condition and the negative contagion. We get rid of the negative emotion, and we're set free to become our biggest and best self.
Yeah. And while we're talking, everybody who's watching or listening, you're having people come up in your mind right now that you know that you need to forgive.
Uh-huh.
And it's almost like you feel good when you hold on to it because you have control of it. But I want to challenge you, make a list of those people that have hurt you in the past and start to work through that process of forgiveness, because forgiveness is setting yourself free.
Yeah.
Not that other person free, setting yourself free. And I believe that every single one of us want to live in freedom.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good way to end. Thanks for the story. I appreciate it. If you want to connect with us, you can get us at centerforvictory.com, or you can call our office at area code 724-462-8383. And just remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make this your best day yet. Thanks a lot for listening. We'll see you next time.